Hi, in this video, I want to talk about how to calculate the pricing power for your software company. Now, this is a term that is used a lot in regular industry parlance. We often hear that Warren Buffett looks at the pricing power of a company in order to invest in it. All right. So you have sales, your company is running, and somebody says, hey, what is the pricing power? What do we bear in the market? And this is a metric that in some companies is reported and in some companies is not reported. And like, how do I find the pricing power? All I have is the bunch of contracts, and I don't really know what pricing power is. Sometimes we discount a little bit, sometimes we discount a lot, and the discount range also keeps changing. So how do I know what my pricing power is? Maybe I can just guess or assess how I'm doing versus competition. But there is a very simple way in which you can compute pricing power. So in your company, you are going to have CRM sales data, right? And you're going to have data of opportunities that you have closed. Now, the opportunities that you have closed, you're going to have the total contract value, and you're going to have the number of units that you have sold. Either these units are, let's say, seats that got sold up front, or the units will be gigabytes of data consumed, or it will be some sort of server compute capacity. Regardless, you will have a metric or a set of metrics for your company which either get sold up front or are consumed after the fact. So what you want is the total contract value data per customer, and you want the amount of units either sold up front or consumed. And then you want to calculate from that a dollar per unit metric. All right. What this will do is let you normalize all of your customer data into this dollar per unit metric. You can say my pro plan averages a $60 per user. My elite plan averages a $90 per user. And you can track that over time. Tracking discounting over time doesn't really help because your list prices will keep changing. That's not what you report to the board. What you want to report to the board is what is my dollar per seat, because mostly for the lifetime of the company, unless you make a major transition, that metric is going to stay the same. It's the same in the case of a usage-based metric. You'll have to pick that usage-based metric, do your analysis against that. Now, as you expand the pie, this $60 per seat needs to increase that average deal value upfront. You want to increase that across your tiers, and you want to sell more in terms of a per seat, dollar per seat value as you're expanding, right? And now this simply gives you an idea. People on average pay $60 per seat for the pro plan, and then those cohorts end up expanding another $30 per seat. Something happens to the elite plan, right? And you may observe that, hey, it may be the case that our elite plan is only sold for $80 per seat up front, but these type of customers end up paying $150 per seat more after the fact. So you then can build a simple narrative of your pricing power up front and your ability to expand customers. So you want to normalize things to get a typical example. So that was my quick feedback about pricing power. Generally, when you will do this analysis for your customer base, you could do this by plan. Sometimes you may not even have plans in the business. You may have been selling ad hoc for a while. In that case, what you want to do is you want to quartile out your customers. You want to see what the top quartile is doing, what the third quartile, second and first quartile are doing, and have some way to segment out based on the units consumed as to the where these customer quartiles live, and then create pseudo packages, right? So in case when you don't really have packages, you may want to create pseudo packages to again get that same level of cuts of data that you will generally need. Now, of course, you should do by geo, you should do by any other way that you run the business. Mostly for pricing, it's going to be the tiers. If you don't have tiers, I recommend this quartile segmenting strategy that generally gets you a little bit more granularity. And when you look at your data, you're most likely going to find some sort of an exponential function where your top enterprise customers tend to pay you a lot, but the other times this curve immediately rapidly falls and the units consumed tend to fall, right? That's something I've observed in many cases. So you want to see what this graph looks like, because the less steep this curve is and the more higher prices across the board customers are going to pay you, that is really good for you. But regardless, you will need to understand the nature of your business. This curve will tell you whether if few customers bring a lot of money on board, in which case you really need to focus on those enterprise plans. Make sure the sales cycle length is long enough for those plans to work well. Make sure you're expanding those customers. But if you do not have a steep curve, if your curve is more flat, in which case you're really trying to maximize market reach and market potential, because everybody is contributing to your business more equally than in an exponential function. So the type of plan you may create in this case is going to be different from the type of pricing you will create in the case where a few customers drive a lot of value. So I hope that clarifies a little bit of how you can look at your customer data to understand your pricing power. Thank you.